Hi, I'm Jocelyn Mackey with Accessible Design Studios, and welcome to our studio. So many people want to know how to become an interior designer. I hear it all the time when I say hi, and they ask, like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm an interior designer. And that is often the next question. What do I need to do? I've always dreamed of being an interior designer. And oftentimes, they don't quite have it right. All interior designers aren't the same. Did you think we were? We're not. And an interior designer and a decorator, they're not the same. Did you know that? It's not the same. And how many times have you walked into a commercial building and you thought, oh wow, the architect did an amazing job on this building? Well, maybe on the building, but there was a very talented staff that worked on the interior. And that's often the commercial interior designer. So if you'd like to learn more about the difference between a decorator, a designer, a commercial interior designer, and what architects do, keep listening because I have just a little bit to share with you. I am what you call a commercial interior designer, but I'm also a registered interior designer. So what does that mean? It's like, never heard of that before. Well, a registered interior designer actually in the state of Georgia and in many states has a stamp, much like an architect stamp. But our stamp allows us to stamp commercial interior design plans and residential for non-load bearing construction. As in, we work independently of architects for most of our work, unless it's something that is outside of our scope. Or if we need a structural engineer or electrical engineer or any other type of engineer, then we work with them and we pull together and create construction drawings. Interior designers actually create interior construction drawings. We specialize in life safety. We specialize in space planning. And it's much, much more than decorating. Let me give you, for instance, when you have a space that is already built and you embellish it, you decorate it. You get that? You have the Christmas tree, you put the ornaments on it, you're decorating it. Much like what decorating is it's what a decorator does. And interior designers do decorate, but we actually design. When you consider designing, what you're saying is, I'm going to take something that does not exist and I'm going to create it. And that's what interior designers do every day in and day out. Now, it's much like the hierarchy of nurses. If I could give you like a comparison, you have nurses that are nursing assistants, you have LPNs, you have registered nurses, you have all these different levels, and each level of nurse has a specialized set of skills that comes from their specialized education and their amount of testing and the amount of licensure that's given to them. Well, interior designers are the same way. Let me tell you a little bit about my journey in interior design and how I got to where I am. I started out in the mortgage industry, and when the recession hit, I was actually staging homes for some of my real estate friends to help them move their properties. And because I just naturally had a gift to feel what was wrong, what was off, and they would sell like clockwork. And so closer to the recession, I found myself doing more and more renovations and relying heavily on contractors to tell me what we could and could not do. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I found that scary because I was the one that was giving the recommendations to the clients. I was the one responsible. And I did not know, and I was allowing other people to dictate what was the best solution. So that sent me to interior design school. And like most people, I didn't know what interior design was. I thought interior design and interior decorating were synonymous. And I thought that I would just learn more about colors, about the history of furniture, about some basic things. And no, I learned after residential design about how to hand draft, because the first thing they did was gave us drafting classes where we had to draft a set of construction drawings by hand. Then that went into automated drafting, where we learned the software and the codes. And then we got into all different types of commercial design, and I did not know that there was a difference. And there's a major difference between how commercial buildings are built and residential homes are built. And learning those standards and codes and accessibility standards and BOMA, and then learning about BIFMA, furniture requirements, it was eye-opening, and I fell in love with the commercial side of design. We did hospitality, which is hotels and restaurants, design work in school, learned about healthcare and senior living. And this is where I actually learned the difference. So I get why people don't know the difference. I didn't know the difference either. But when I came out of school and I got my first job in commercial interior design, and then that's when I really realized the extent of what a commercial interior designer does. A lot of the things I thought that the architect was responsible for, they really weren't. They oversaw the drawings, because in those instances, they were the ones with the stamp for permitting. And after we do our drawings and create these amazing interior spaces, space planning, life safety stuff, all of these things, we were often not the ones that were in the meetings with the clients, because after they stamped the drawings and it was time for site visits, we were often left off. We were often not included. And in the architectural owner contractor meetings, we often didn't have a seat at that table either. So when you walk into a commercial building, understand that there's a very talented, special team of interior designers that are oftentimes done that work. And whenever the place is photographed and the publications go out, you may not even see the name of the interior team in publication. Sometimes you do, oftentimes you don't. And that's why it was important for interior designers to find a way to own their work, thus us being registered interior designers and having that opportunity. So next, I want to just go over with you the different education requirements between architects, interior designers, and decorators. So I know the topic of interior design and interior decorator is a sensitive topic for a lot of people, and I'm going to try to keep my comments to facts so that we can get out of opinions, even though, you know, what is a fact, correct? Because even though I've worked in commercial interior design for all of my career, and it's very, very hard for someone who does not have a degree to get a job as a professional commercial interior designer. There have been instances where maybe the person started at the front desk and learned the industry and got a shot to be an interior designer, or knew someone who knew someone that got them in, and they learned the ropes that way. But they're limited, because unless you have the degree, then you can't sit for the exam, and then therefore you can never become registered, as I'm registered. So let me tell you quickly, or I'm just going to read off what the state of Georgia considers an interior designer. It says an interior designer means, and this is from the Georgia, from our code, Title 43, Chapter 4, Article 1, if you care to know. Okay. Interior designer means, and it's referring to offering, rendering services, consultation, studies, plannings, drawings, specifications, contract documents, and other technical submissions for the administration of interior design, and for contracting relating to non-structural interior construction of a building by a registered interior designer. such terms as space planning, along with finishes, furniture, and the design and fabrication of non-structural construction within interior spaces. Responsibility for life safety design of proposed or modification of existing non-structural, non-engineered elements for construction, such as partitions, which are walls, doors, hallways, passive egress. Egress is the way you exit a building safely in case of fire or other disaster, connected to the exits or exit ways. Modification of existing building construction so as to alter the number of people which egress the system of the building as it's designed. Then it says, now this is where they change our name. Architects, their name's protected. Interior designers, name is changed when you register. Registered interior designers shall collaborate or coordinate their work with registered architects or engineers for work that is excluded by definition. Basically, that's it. And then if we drop down, it says registered interior designer means a person that is registered under that article, Article 2 of the chapter, but it does not mean that it restricts a interior decorator or individual offering decorating services, included but not limited to selection of surfaces, window treatments, wall coverings, paint, floor coverings, and light fixtures. So it kind of gives you a better idea, right? Interior designing, interior decorating is not the same. Just because you go and get a 4-year degree doesn't mean that your career stops there. In many states, you can actually become licensed and have a stamp, and then a lot of the work that you do under an architectural firm that they stamp and take responsibility for, you can take responsibility for your own. And how that benefits our clients is that they don't have to hire an architect and a decorator because we're all in one. You get it? They don't need to hire an architectural firm that has a team of interior designers because they're paying the fee for the architectural firm as well as the fee for the designers, when you can just hire registered interior designers, specifically if you need permit drawings, because it's just less expensive, one team, and there you go. So let's take a look at the legislative map. There is a map, and I'll share that with you now. And this is how it works. Depending on where you are in the country, including Canada, the legislation of interior design has different looks. So if you look at the map, everywhere in orange has a Title Act, meaning it protects the title of interior designer, but yet they're not allowed to permit their drawings. They would have to work with an architect to stamp the drawings that they have created. Then you have the areas in yellow. So that's where I am in Georgia. So all of those areas in yellow, they protect our title, but as you see, they do change our title from interior designer to registered interior designer. And then we have permitting privileges. Then you go to good old California, who does things their own way. They have their own specific credentialing process. Then you have the areas in purple that have no legislation at all, and anyone has privileges to get a permit. Then you have the areas in red that have a practice act, meaning you have to be registered to practice, but they also get permitting privileges. And then the areas in gray, if you're going to be a commercial interior designer, they protect specifically commercial interior design, which has to be done by licensed interior designers, or basically, and they're allowed to also have permitting privileges. But then you have the vast area here that is in blue. and there's no legislation there. So that's why it gets tricky, because some places the title's protected, some places the title is changed, some places you can get a stamp to permit your drawings, some places you can't. And so I get it. It is challenging for us to even begin to talk about. And there's a lot of room for feelings to be hurt, because there are places where a person can be self-taught and go into a commercial building and feels like they're a designer, but there's so much you don't know. There's so much that they don't know that they don't know. And oftentimes they're really supporting the architect who's really making all the decisions as to what can be done and what can't, because they don't have the bandwidth, unless they've been in the industry for a really, really long time and worked in that industry, to even know what they can and cannot do. So just a little tad. And what I want to do is just let's just play a game. How about that? Let's play a little game. There are 2 wall coverings in my hand for a commercial building, and this is going to be in the lobby. Tell me which wall covering is appropriate for a lobby of a commercial building. How about neither one? How do I know? Well, because this one's paper, and a lobby is a part of the egress system, and it has to withstand fire for at least an hour. And this paper will be like kindling, and so will this. Just set the whole place ablaze. So what we do as commercial interior designers is we make sure that we use wall coverings that are appropriate per code for that application. Unlike these that don't have any of the technical information on the back, so you kind of pick these up at showrooms, we work with our commercial trade partners. They give us all the technical information on everything we specify, because remember what I said, every part of everything within a commercial building has some kind of legal code or standard attached to it. And I know that this is appropriate because it says under the flame resistant is ASTM E84 or Class A resistance rating. And so is this one. So that we know as commercial designers that the simple wall covering that you would think is a simple selection is not going to kill people. It's not going to off-gas, and it's not going to set the flame-resistant walls that are in place that have to be 1 hour rated. It's not going to contribute to them burning faster. Life safety is very important. Let's do it one more time. I have 3 pieces of fabric. So there is one that is just not appropriate at all for commercial building, and it's this lovely one right here. Why? Because anytime we put put a drapery in a window, it has to meet the NFPA 701 standard, and this one doesn't. It came from a fabric showroom. It doesn't have any of the technical information here, but I already know that one is purely decorative and should be in a residential application. This bad boy here is most appropriate for a privacy curtain in a healthcare facility, because I know that it has antimicrobial properties. Why? Because it's studied, and here's the tag that tells me all of the properties. And then this one, this lovely guy right here, would be appropriate for any commercial application in a window, because it has the NFPA 701, and I know that it's not going to cause the building to go up in flames and to potentially kill people. Never thought about that, right? And so this is why you have to know what you don't know, and it's hard to teach yourself these things, because it's learned through application and working under someone else who knows, and studying and being tested. And I could go on and on and on and talk about more fabrics, but the gist of it is, it's really important to understand who does what. And it's okay if you want to start out as self-taught and want to be a residential interior designer or decorator, because even in code, the codes are more lenient towards residences. In commercial buildings, depending on how many people are occupying the space, what the space is being used for, how big the building is, how tall the building is, will determine how the walls have to be constructed, whether it can be of timber or metal structures. And then it also affects us as interior designers, because then we have to know whether or not the application we're using and how we're using it is within standards. So yeah, it's just knowing where you want to be in the business if you're looking to become an interior designer, and understanding that we're not all the same, and that interior designers are often the ones working in the architectural firms' offices that are actually designing the interiors of commercial spaces. And when they do that, they don't need their own stamp, because the architects take credit for that work and they stamp it. But if you want to be an independent commercial interior designer who does not have to submit their work to an architect and wants to be able to permit their own drawings, it's going to require for you to have that 4-year degree, for you to sit for that 3-part test that takes 11 hours, for you to submit your documentation to your Secretary of State, for you to get those credentials. And that takes several years, 6 years or more. If you're okay and your market is residential, then maybe none of this matters and maybe none of this applies to you. But just remember, when you're dabbling in commercial spaces, understand that the people in those spaces don't know their way out. Oftentimes, they're new to the building, and the standards and requirements to be an interior designer that works on those spaces specifically, it's a high standard because it's high stakes and it's nothing to take lightly. So I know that was a heavy topic, and I hope it helped. And yeah, if there's anything else I can share on this topic, just let me know. Just send us a message, drop a line in the comments, and I'll be glad to delve into it deeper, because there's so much more to say, and I'm sure I just scratched the surface and maybe even agitated a few people that don't agree. But nothing I said was my opinion. Everything I said was fact. Until next time, continue to make your life a beautiful place to be. Like and subscribe to let me know if you'd like more videos like this one. Stay connected. Follow us on Instagram at Accessible Design Studios.